Welcome to another episode of Real BMX Racing, the podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Wrenchman Racing, Wrenchman Wheel Builds, Recycles Bike Shop, Eddie Blocks, 110% Nutrition, Extreme Squared, and Artistic Apparel, with a special shout out to Toby Henderson over there at Box Components. Today we have a very special guest. We have USABMX's men's pro, one of the top elite riders in the game right now, Joey Leto.
Thanks for taking the time to do this with us.
Yeah, no problem.
So I don't know if you know about us. We're basically Real BMX, the podcast, and we just go around and we try to interview all the pros and other riders out there that we see that are just coming up and try to get them out there, try to give some exposure and let people know what you guys are really like on and off the track.
Right on.
So I guess we'll just get into it. Shannon, you want me to start or you got it?
Yeah, start it off.
Okay. So I see that you've been riding your bike since you were 3 years old. What made you start, why a bicycle at 3?
Yeah, so I first got started, my mom took me out to Sarasota. I used to just kind of play around in the neighborhood with my buds and make sketchy ramps that kind of made her nervous. So then it just kind of evolved from that, and then took me out to the racetrack, and then I've just been riding since then.
Okay. Oh, I think we just lost him.
He said something about he wasn't on Wi-Fi, so his connection looks shaky a little bit.
Okay, no big deal.
And I think on here, once you lose him, there's no. Yeah, there he goes.
There
All
we
right.
go. So okay,
Sorry
so how old were you when you first started racing though? So you got on the bike at 3. When was the first time you went out there? Were you Strider?
No, I mean, they didn't even really have Striders when I first started.
Sure.
So my first race, I think I was 4 years old, maybe. I don't know. I wasn't really too competitive then.
Right.
I just kind of rode around the track and then wasn't really sure what was going on. But eventually it kind of clicked and I started trying to win.
There we go. Well, okay, so another one I wanted to ask you too is, what was your first sponsor?
My first sponsor. So my first factory team that I rode for was an NBL team for Todd Lackey, and it was Intense M1. It was the NBL Intense team, and that was one of the most fun times I've ever had with the sport. It was just a great team, and it was wild. The people on there were pretty crazy. It was CJ McGuire, Justin Riddell, Dylan Shipley, just all the Florida crew. Mackenzie Gayhart was on the team, and we would just I don't know, I remember it a lot even though I was so young, but it was a lot of fun. We would just road trip around in Todd Lackey's van and go to all these different NBL races. It was probably one of the most fun times I've ever had.
I was gonna say, so but with that being said, being that your crew was pretty much all great, did you guys challenge each other on the track, or how'd that work out? You guys just knew who was better?
So with that team, I mean, I was so young still. The closest person to me was Dylan Shipley. So we would ride a lot in practice. But other than that, it was everybody else was pretty older, compared to me and Dylan were the youngest on the team. But it was CJ was pro. I think Justin was 1927, I want to say, at the time. And then there was Jeffrey Banzer as well. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of cool because we would always just watch those guys race and try to be like them one day.
Of course.
So it was kind of cool to have them. And
I was like, what was so who was the first pro that you saw that you were kind of starstruck about where you're like, oh my God, that's him or that's her?
So I grew up at Sarasota, and there was always like there'd probably be about 10 pros every local night there.
Nice.
But the one who kind of like inspired me the most and kind of like guided me into his footsteps was Percy Owens. And even like still to this day, I kind of am most inspired by him. Um, just because like he grew up in Florida, Sarasota, same part that I did. I used to go to his clinics every Wednesday. He had like his Percy clinics, and it wasn't like a typical like clinic. Like we would train pretty hard and just try to get better. And I mean, it was always fun to like. I didn't really understand kind of too much about like what I would like the big grand scheme of things. Like we were all just kind of doing it because we enjoyed it in the moment.
I mean, that's what it's about right there. Is like going out there, having fun and being competitive, but always still having fun. Now, also, how old were you when you
For
turned?
sure. Um, when I was like, I actually remember. So I was one of the first like 5 and under experts ever. So I was like maxed out on points, ready to turn expert. And then they had to like make a new class because they didn't have a 5 and under expert yet.
Right, right. Jeez. So you was
But
always riding with the big dogs, even when you was little.
I don't know. I just always like riding. I mean, maybe it wasn't even because I did good. It's just because I was riding so much that I was able to even get enough points. But
That's pretty cool. I was gonna say, man, it's like, oh, go ahead, Shannon.
No, I was gonna say, so speaking of riding much, we haven't been able to ride much in North Carolina because of the weather. It's been raining,
right.
and it just for some reason it starts on Friday night, and it just ends on Monday,
Right?
maybe. It just kills our weekends.
Yeah,
And
I hear you.
I just came back from South Florida. I spent a couple of weeks down there. It rained every single day, right? I was
Mhm.
trying to get to a track, just maybe to rent a bike and do a practice or something, because I was just dying to get on a track, especially a Florida track, because you guys have some nice tracks. But how do you? I mean, does it rain where you're from all the time? Like, does it cancel a lot of events? Like, how do you deal with that, man?
Yeah, I mean, in Florida, I mean, it's always like, especially this time of year, probably now through like even October, it's always just going to be like kind of the rainy season. So I like to try and ride in the morning if I can, because usually you can kind of predict that it's going to rain about like 5, 6 o'clock. So, like, usually if I'm able to just like get a session at Sarasota or whatever in the morning, and then I have the whole day too to get other stuff done. But I mean, it's definitely, I would say it's like hard to juggle. I'd say it was even harder when I was in school at Lindenwood in Missouri, because then I'd have like an entire semester where I couldn't ride because the tracks would just be closed for winter. So that whole fall semester, I would like just ride maybe indoor skate parks, if that, but the tracks didn't open until like May or April. So that was always kind of tricky to be, but I honestly think it made me better in the long run because like I was able to get stronger during that time. A lot of times it's hard to like get stronger. I feel like when you're riding so much, because then you can't go to the gym, or maybe you're not eating enough. But it's just a lot easier to get stronger when you're not riding all the time. So
Okay.
I think it might even helped.
Oh, yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it just makes sense to me. Now, how old were you when you turned pro?
I was 20 years old,
Okay.
so this is my third season racing pro.
Okay. What was it like turning pro? Was it
It was
an eye opener or was it what you thought it would be?
so I turned pro the year after I got NAG 1 in 1720. And then I went from getting NAG 1 to getting moto both days in Dothan, Alabama. It sucked. Like I thought I was like I thought I was all this. And I was like, man, I'm quick now. I just got 9-1, and then I just got my ass handed to in Dothan. Um, and then you learn how to ride more consistently, which is kind of what you have to do in pro. Is you can't just hit one good lap like you can in amateur. When you have to hit one good lap a day, and that's in the main. You have to kind of be more consistent throughout the day to put yourself in a good position where you get gate pick and kind of give yourself a chance there. And it's a lot more of like kind of reading the situations, and I know exactly, especially on the USABMX series, how every single one of my competitor rides. So I mean, just kind of learning how other people are going to ride and make decisions. Kind of just more time in the game, really. But
Let me ask you, there's something I always wanted to know, and I just never looked it up and never asked anybody. You mentioned gate pick. Well, how does that work?
so it's different for UCI than USABMX because UCI does it based off of lap time versus USABMX does it based on like pretty much placement. So first moto, second moto, third moto, you count the total points from like what you placed. So if you got like first, third, fourth, then you would go 4 plus 3 plus 1, and then you have 9 total points going into the semi or quarter.
Okay.
So and then usually the cutoff is like right around 12 to see who qualifies out of motos. But pretty much like if you go 1-1-1, you'll have perfect gate pick, and then you can pretty much go wherever you want. So that's kind of where it comes into play of like being consistent in those rounds to get an inside lane and semis and mains.
And do you have a favorite gate, or does it depend on the track you're at?
It definitely just depends on the track I ride. I've been like at Sarasota, it kind of cuts in. So like gate 1 would get cut off before the first turn, but gate 3 is pretty like lined up. And then it also just depends on like who else is around too. Like if I've had like cases where I've gotten better picks and like some of the top guys like Sylvain will go 1, and then I'll have second pick, and then like Cam Wood or something will have the next pick. And then in that case, I would just go 3 so that I'm not in between the two.
Nice.
And give myself some room.
Okay. What would you say the biggest difference between racing UCI versus racing at USA BMX, competition wise?
I mean, racing UCI is in like a HC or C1 event or a World Cup.
World Cup.
So, I mean, the competition is just like USA BMX. I've raced every single dude before at USA BMX rounds that I did at the World Cup. It's just at the World Cup, like you race them all at the same time, and you can count on them like to be there at the same time. So it's a lot more. I wouldn't say riders that are better, but I just say a lot more good riders all at one time. And it's a little bit different too, just like I said earlier, the lap time. So if you like mess up in a moto or something and you get a bad lap time, then that kind of affects how you'll go into the next round. So a lot of it is just like I'd say more cutthroat in a way, because USA BMX, like you could bonker something and then still get like second and be good. But whereas like at a World Cup, if you like mess up on the track and there's like a big gap between first and second, then you might have like a later gate pick.
It's all about time.
Yep.
And speaking of gates, do you watch the light or do you listen for the beat?
I listen to the beat.
All right.
Yep.
What's your strongest point like out there? Like what are you good at when you hit once you get in the track? Got it dialed in.
I definitely like riding the track. Like I'd say I'm pretty good at like picking out lines to do in the turns and being strategic about where other people are at. Um, and then just like riding the track in general, like maintaining good speed on the jumps. Um, not as good down the hill for sure, but everyone's got their weak points.
Would when you're racing, you're everyone's focused on the front end. Are you worried about your back end? Like if I just drop in right now, the person behind me is either gonna just eat it or take us both out. Is that like something you guys think about, or you just like I'm going in, you just don't touch my tire?
As far as like making a move
Yeah,
on someone's turn,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, like if it's a lot harder to make stupid moves in elite because you're just going way faster. Like it, a lot of times you can't just go in super low and then you know what I mean, because then you're just gonna like it just won't ever work because you're going fast and it's just gonna be hard to hold that line going that fast on the inside. So I mean that a lot of that comes with time too, and just kind of like figuring out um, what works for you, like what you're comfortable with, what you think you'll be able to pull off, and what you don't think you'll be able to pull off.
Okay.
I like to just like for me, if I think I got like a good clean line, and then I like to look for like holes, so to say. So like I'll go into a turn and then look for openings where I have kind of like clean air so where I can accelerate and also not get bunched up. Because the problem is when you get bunched up in those turns is when you go from like fifth to eighth or like second to last or you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
we watch you guys, and it's just amazing out there how fast something can change so quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I was gonna say, so with that being said, are you the fastest one in your family?
Yeah, I'm the only one who races still in my family.
Okay. Well, so who used to race with you while you were growing up? Like brother, sister, your dad, mom?
My dad raced for a bit. He didn't grow up racing though. He started racing because I was racing.
Right.
He just got bored sitting on the bleachers, so he got out there and tore it up.
That's pretty cool. So father son moment, he's
Yeah,
like, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. We got
yeah,
this.
it was sweet. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Was your dad a factory dad?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it that. He was kind of like a jerry rig dad, more to say. Like my my bike would break or whatever, and he would somehow make it work again
You were
with
MacGyver it, huh? Just put
limited
everything together.
resources.
That's pretty
Yeah, I remember just going out to the garage when I was young, and he'd just be on wailing on something with a hammer.
like, don't look at it. It's gonna work. Just don't look at
Yeah,
it.
I
So
mean, he
yeah.
knew what he was doing, but I don't know. I'd prefer working on my own bike these days.
I was just about to ask you that. Do you work on your own bike?
Yeah, um, I got to work on my own bike. Like I have to know everything's running the way I like it, and if somebody else works on it, then I just don't know that. You know what I mean?
Right,
So,
Is
right.
there anybody you trust to work on your bike besides yourself?
um, my bud Evan, is he's he's a nerd about everything to do with bikes, so
That's
I'd
awesome.
let him work on my bike.
So
What
do most pros work on their bikes as far as you know?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
most of them. There's a couple of them who don't, but yeah, I'd say
um
for the most part, they work on their own bikes.
okay. Cool, cool. I was just gonna say, do you change your gearing by track or you just run a whatever you run now at every track?
I mean, so for these days, it's like 95% of it is all supercross races. So I won't really change my gear for that. but like this coming weekend, we're heading to Reno, so I'm gonna put a bit of a smaller gear on for that one.
Okay.
So let's get into a little bike check then, man, since you're the mechanic of your own bike and you know what parts are on it. Because sometimes I ask people about their bike and they have no idea what size cranks they're running and they just have no
All
clue.
right,
So how tall are you? Let's start there.
about 6 foot.
And what size frame do you ride?
It's a triple XL.
And what all right. And so how big is that? Like as far as their triple XL, what's the top tube
The,
on it?
the 22 and a quarter.
Okay. And what size cranks do you run?
177s.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And what about
Yep.
bar size?
I run 825s.
Okay.
A little bit taller than most people, most elites, anyways. But I like them. I feel like bike setups these days, you either got to set it up for the hill or the track. Then in my head, I'll never compromise an entire racetrack to get a good gate or to get a good hill. So I
Okay.
kind of set it up more to where I feel like I can go fast on the track.
What tires do you run?
I run power blocks,
At what PSIs?
80.
Okay. Do you run the same size tire on both front and back?
Yeah.
I think most pros do, it seems like. You know, all the experts, we all run like the bigger tire on front, smaller tire on back.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that recently. Like, why are we doing that? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've always just liked the 175, so they feel good in the turns.
Okay.
I don't think I would find any use for a bigger tire in the front.
You said you run carbon bars?
No, they're chromoly.
Okay. Have you tried to run carbon bars? You like them?
I've never ran carbon bars. Nope.
I just saw a video of somebody moving some carbon bars. I think it was
Yeah,
just at the UCI, the World Cup.
I saw that. I think I want to say maybe that was Rinkarel or I don't know, one of those Inspire guys.
I think he was okay, but it was scary, man.
Yeah, he was going really fast into that turn.
Yeah,
Like it looked like he hit that jump pretty low, and he still overshot it by like 10 feet. So
for real.
that's crazy.
Go ahead, Shannon. You got another one?
Oh, no, I was just no.
Okay. Who are your current sponsors?
I ride for the Stay Strong World Team right now, and pretty much every co-sponsor that the team has. Uh, I love those guys, Marco and Gunner. They're real good to me, treat me good. I love the bike. So pretty much every part that Stay Strong makes, I'll put on there, and then I'm running the Avian cranks and forks with the Tioga power blocks on there. And then I got Profile AC2s on right now, and I really love those hubs, but I'm about to switch to Onyxes because that's one of our team sponsors this year. So I'm gonna switch over to the Onyx hubs.
Awesome.
Yep.
Have you ever ran a silent hub before?
I used to run stealth hubs.
Okay.
I like those ones a lot. So we'll
So
see.
do you hear other riders? Like, can you hear what's going on around you when you're racing?
Um, I don't really pay attention to it. It's just kind of like background noise. But
So what about the announcer? That's also background noise? Crowd?
yeah, I mean, I can hear the announcer and everything that he's saying, but I'm not like locked into what he's saying or even paying attention to what he's saying. It's just kind of like noise in the background.
Because I guess you guys are going way too fast. Like I use that to my advantage because I could hear that all the time. And if they're a good announcer, they're pretty much letting me know what's going on around me. I know if I'm way ahead or if there's somebody right on me, and I listen for that because I kind of react to that, you know. But you
They're giving
guys,
you little cheat codes.
Yeah, right.
That's funny.
So what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie?
Mhm.
Me and Evan been watching a lot of Trailer Park Boys lately.
Yeah, that's a good show. I like that one.
Yeah, it's just funny. I don't know.
What do you say? Peanut butter and sorry, I cracked myself up on that one.
Yeah, I
Shannon's like,
didn't
what
get
are you
into that yet.
talking about?
I don't really watch a whole lot of movies. I like movies that are just like you don't have to pay attention to, and you can just look at every once in a while, and they're funny.
Right, right.
I don't like ones where you have to sit down for 2 hours and pay attention to what's going on.
If you like, if you miss it, you're like, what the heck just happened? Well,
What's that?
I was gonna say, so do you do you watch scary movies?
I've seen a couple. I've seen like Insidious. I think the scariest one that I watched was that Conjuring movie.
Yeah, those are kind of rough.
Yeah, they're scary. I don't know.
They had a
I
friend,
never watched those.
she would
Like,
watch them at night in the dark, and I was like, "You are nuts! Like, how do you sleep with that?" Like,
yeah,
I
no,
could.
this is never my idea. I'll always just kind of like watch those other people are, and even then,
Right, right. What's your
not
go-to food?
go-to food.
Yep.
Um, honestly, I love all food. I love food. Like I like Italian food. I like Mexican food. Um, I like just like a good steak. I'd say I don't know. It really just depends on like what mood I'm in.
Okay.
Like when I was in the Netherlands, like the food there was good, but like when I came back, I just wanted a burger.
Nice.
Like
Yeah, of course.
but
Is
then like,
so okay, so out of the nationals that you've ridden at, what's the one spot where you're like, all right, when I get to this state, this city, they got the best, and you look forward to that place to go eat at after you're done racing?
um there's that taco shop in Tulsa. It's like oh god, Don Tacos or something. Don Tacos, I think. And they got like these arepas that are really good. So I definitely always go to Don Taco when I'm in Tulsa. Um, let's see, what's another one? I guess thinking about Mexican right now, but there's this Mexican restaurant in Nashville that we went to like maybe 4 times throughout the weekend called Tony's, and they just got like these big chicken bowls with queso on them.
Like,
Pretty
and
good.
now I'm like, damn, I didn't eat dinner yet, man. This Mexican food.
Yeah.
Right. Um. So, oh, one thing I also want to know too, if you were in 17 to 20X again, what's the one advice you would tell yourself, knowing what you know now?
Um, that's a good question. Honestly, that year was crazy. Like it was the year that my last year was the year that COVID was going on, and I don't really know if I would give myself a piece of advice just because like the things that I've learned throughout racing that entire year. I don't know. I just feel like it was good to learn and not to be told. So I really did enjoy like that whole year was kind of changing because I didn't really know what to expect, and then I started doing pretty good. Even really when I wasn't even expecting to, I was just kind of trying to start racing again and get back into the scene. So I don't know. I don't think I would have said anything to be honest. I just would have let it happen.
What's no, go ahead, Shannon, you got one?
I was gonna say, do you have a coach now?
Yeah. Yep. I'm getting coached by Connor Fields right now.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool, man.
he's helped me a lot. He definitely knows the sport very, very well, and um, just kind of teaches me to take every day, um, one day at a time, take every race one race at a time, and then just tick off the marks and put your focus into what you're doing instead of um, putting your energy into different places, like
So
where you get five,
no, go ahead.
5 years from now.
Like, how much of a boost of
Yeah,
confidence that to have Connor Fields training you and coaching you? Because like that means he believes in you, man. You know, and just to have
yeah,
a guy like that out there watching you, and you know, somebody you could always ask for advice or whatever. That's
right. Yeah, he's a great coach. I mean, I go to him for a lot of things other than BMX as well. Just trying to figure out what my next plans are for life, and it's one thing to just be doing the putting the reps in and doing the work, but if you believe in it, if you believe in the work that you're doing, then it really just makes you more confident on the track as well. Um, yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that he's taught me too is just to believe in what you're doing.
That's awesome. Wow,
For sure.
cool.
you're an EMT, correct?
I'm a paramedic now. Just
Yeah.
got my paramedic.
Oh, congratulations,
Congratulations.
man.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Thank.
I know that takes a lot of work, man.
Yeah, it
So
was hard.
so without going into any details, what's the scariest thing that you've probably seen?
Um, I've seen sad things. I've seen people who just annoy you. the I'd say the scariest thing, I ran this 15-year-old who was in cardiac arrest because he smoked weed that was laced with fentanyl, and that was a pretty chaotic call because his dad didn't really know what was going on, and then he was like just crying, and the family, there was a lot going on with the family, and then we were resuscitating um, the kid, obviously, who had smoked the weed that was laced with fentanyl, and I don't know, it was sad for sure, but um, he was in a coma by the time we left the hospital, so we got a pulse back on him and
Awesome.
resuscitated him, so he was heading in the right direction. I never even really followed up with that call, but it's a lot harder too when you're a student to like follow up with calls that you run versus when you're actually a paramedic.
Right.
But
Wow.
Does
yeah,
it get easier to block that stuff out? Like when you go home for the night after seeing something like that, you know, are you trained to block that out?
yeah. I mean, there's things that like everything. That's the one thing about working as a paramedic, and everything reminds you of something. You know what I mean? Because you're running to all these different houses, these different streets, these different. So like, it's not so bad since I've been back in Florida, but like when I was back in Missouri, it's like, oh hey, there's that one street I ran a call there once, or you know what I mean. So there's just like things that kind of remind you of it here and there, but um, I do enjoy it. Like it's a fun, you get gratitude out of doing the job, and I like working on the ambulance and doing all the skills and yeah.
I was say, hopefully you guys were one of the nice ones because when I broke my ribs and I had to take the ambulance ride, I kid you not, I think he was trying to hit every bump.
Yeah, I mean
I'm
they're
pretty sure
bumpy
he was
back
trying
there.
to.
They're
Right?
no
Oh
luxury.
God, I was like, dude, I'm hurting worse in the back of this thing than I was on the track laying there. Like, just pull over and just leave me on the
Yeah.
side of the road because you guys suck at this. Like I was like so mad. And I just got my jersey. Like I think it was the first time I was wearing that jersey. I just got it because we're gonna have to cut the jersey off. He was like, "No, you don't have to cut the jersey off." You're like, "No, we're good. We're good. Just help me lift my arm up." He said, "No, we can't. We're too much time. I gotta cut it." And I was just like, "All right, okay, all right."
That's a bummer. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not luxury vehicles. The ambulance that I was in for my internship, I mean, it was terrible because when I was on my internship, I was like back there teching all the time, so I would never be like at the front of the ambulance. And our ambulance, like the heater got stuck on, like full blast too, not just a little bit. And it was like that for like 3 weeks. So it was terrible too, because I'd be like sweating back there with like old Grammy, and she'd be like, "It's hot back here." I was like, "Yeah, I know."
You were actually transporting patients in that ambulance?
Right? You should have just messed with
Yeah.
head. Like, no, it's kind of chilly in here. Are you sure you're hot?
I would give them like cold packs just because of the heater stuck on.
Yes.
Have you ever had to use your
Yeah.
skills at the track?
What's that?
Have you ever had to use your EMT slash param your skills at the track?
I mean, so every time like there's a crash at the track, that's always trauma. So I mean, it's always kind of just like get the resources that you need, and obviously if there's been a couple of times where like people have crashed and I've had to just bandage them up, like control bleeding and that type of stuff. Um, yeah, so I'd say I've used it a couple of times for sure. Just managing traumas.
I mean, don't you agree that there should be a paramedic at every single track, like at almost every race? I mean, because somebody is getting hurt. Like every time I go to the track, somebody's getting carried off. It's usually an old guy, but I mean that's just around our way for some reason. But and we
Yeah.
usually seem to find a paramedic or EMT at the tracks. Just the mom or pop or whatever. But
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, they always had a paramedic at the track and an ambulance, matter of fact, right there
Right.
on standby. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's useful for sure. And I know USABMX has like a special medical crew that they'll fly out for all supercross events.
Okay.
So I mean, there are like staff medics as far as like for those big supercross hills. Um, I'm not really too sure exactly how it works, like if they'll get, because I saw Oldsmar too. They had some Oldsmar EMS there as well. So I'm not sure if like USA BMX will bring in their own crews or if they'll get like local crews involved. I'm really not too sure, but I know that there is like staffed medical personnel at every Supercross event because every time that I've been to like a pro hill race, there's always like a medic set up at the finish line or an ambulance somewhere.
Gotcha. So, what is your favorite track in Florida, your favorite track in the States, and then your favorite track in the world?
And Florida, definitely Sarasota, just because it's my home and like I've been like very involved with that track since pretty young age.
Okay.
And I love Irma Milla there, and um, Todd's good too. Todd's doing a lot of the county work right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just good people, and I love the track too. It's a big track. The jumps are big. I honestly think it's the best track in the country right now if the gate was faster. Because the gate's a little slow. But if they speed the gate up, for sure, definitely the best. And then I really liked Papendal. That was a really fun track.
Okay.
So that was definitely probably one of my favorite tracks in the world. I'd say it's my favorite track in the world. Probably, yeah.
Okay.
It was fun.
When's the next time you're going out of states?
Hopefully I'll be going to Scotland.
Okay.
If they select me for Worlds. So I'll find that out kind of mid-July.
Okay. Now, how do they pick it? Is it just by your wins, losses somewhere, or they just randomly pick you guys?
So they do it based off of results that you've had, and then a lot of times they'll use individually UCI rankings. So for USABMX, you can improve. There's a lot of people really don't understand kind of how the pro racing works, but Friday and Saturday count towards the USABMX Pro Series races, which goes towards like USABMX overall pro standings. And then those Sundays, they'll either be like Nashville, they didn't have one. It was just Friday and Saturday, but they'll either be a HC or a C1 race. And the HC and the C1 races will count towards your individual UCI ranking. So those are UCI points.
Okay.
So they'll look at those, the HC, C1, and then your World Cup races results and races always count towards your individual UCI ranking as well. So they'll look at that as well as just like any results you've gotten from USABMX pro races. And so I sent in a petition because it's like I didn't get the level 1 funded spot. So I sent in a petition to get like a spot on the team so that I could compete. And it pretty much just asked like, why do you think you should be selected to go? And then there's like a bunch of different categories, and then you pick like there's like metal capable, future metal capable, just like stuff like that. So you'll like select that and then pretty much just describe why you think you should go, and then towards the end is like put your results for HC and C1 events.
Oh,
Yep.
I didn't know it was that intense to do all that. I didn't know how that worked out. I was just like, do they just everybody gets a shot or certain races? But that's pretty cool. That was pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, those World Cups are very cutthroat, and I mean they want your reasoning to be justified. They're going to give you that spot to wear the USA jersey at a world championship and those like elite U23 and junior classes.
So all right, sure. I got a couple of random questions. Jello or pudding?
What's that?
Jello or pudding?
Pudding.
It is. Your favorite spot to hang out when you're not at the track?
Depends where I'm at, but somewhere I can go fishing.
Nice.
Fishing or hunting or.
What's your least favorite track and why?
Oof. It's kind of a tough question.
Or I guess not your least favorite. What would you say your most challenging track is?
Most challenging?
Yeah.
I'd say Tulsa's probably one of the more challenging tracks in the US. I do have a kind of a least favorite track now. I wouldn't say Tulsa's my favorite track. I definitely like Tulsa's probably one of my favorite tracks. I'd say if I had to I'd say that one's like probably one of the more technical ones in the US. And then if I had to say a least favorite, I would probably say Bogota, only because that first jump. The rest of the track is perfect, but the first jump makes the whole track terrible because it's sketchy and I hate riding it. The lip is like straight up and down, and it's like 3 feet tall. And every time you hit it, in practice, I popped the tire just from going off the lip because the top of it was so steep and it was like just sharp at the top.
Dang.
Yeah. Crazy. I hate that lip.
Shannon, you got anything else?
Favorite type of music?
I've been listening to a lot of reggae lately. I love country. I I'll listen to hip hop or like rap when I'm getting hyped up for a race.
Yeah, like I was gonna ask you that next. Like, what would you play when you're getting hyped up for a race? And how are you before a race? Like that day, like when you wake up, are you like super nervous? Are you relaxed? Do you like shut everything out and not talk to anybody? Are you like super social? You know, like how are you?
So those USABMX races, I mean, I just kind of like for that, I'm just going through the motions, and I tried to be the same way in Bogota and Papendale for those two World Cups that I've raced. Those are still a bit new to me, so I'm still kind of working on that. But for those USABMX races, it's just like a job. Like wake up in the morning, get a good breakfast, do all those things, get good sleep, all those things. That'll get you free speed on race day. And then I won't be like, I'll like talk to people in practice and, you know, but like when it's time to race, I usually don't like to be bothered. Just kind of get locked in and focus on the race.
I mean, do you ever shake the butterflies that you get going into staging, going into the gates? That's just something you always have.
Um, I sometimes it's different. Like in rounds, I'll usually just kind of won't really be as nervous, and then I don't know, like you learn how to deal with the adrenaline and how to use it to your advantage. If you can kind of take that and turn it into focus and use that kind of shakiness and that adrenaline flowing through your body as like a focus kind of, you know what I mean? Like kind of lock in.
Right.
And just kind of really just focus on what you need to do, then it can really help you because, yeah, when you got a lot of adrenaline flowing through, if you use it right and you're not thinking about the person next to you, then you're going to get out pretty good.
So what about you get on the gate, your adrenaline starts flowing, you clipped in, you stand up, and then there's a crash right right before you. Then you got to sit down, unclip, sit there and wait for them to drag the guy off the track.
Yeah, I mean, those are always kind of bad because then you're thinking about the rider who crashed, obviously, and that kind of throws me for a loop sometimes. But if that happens, I'll usually just like get out of the gate and try not to look at the crash and just wait.
And just sit back
Wait
up.
for it to be my turn again.
Got you. Just go through the motions again, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What was
kind of reset?
What was your worst crash?
My worst crash, I'd say, was actually, I'd say my worst crash was kind of unrelated to racing. I was just like out riding dirt jumps when I was like 16 years old and crashed pretty hard then and hit my head pretty good. I dislocated my shoulder 2 years ago at Tulsa, sliding out in that turn. That wasn't very fun. I don't know. I don't really like to think about it too much.
That's what I was gonna ask you. So how do you mentally come back from it? You just put it out of your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of think about like it really will start afterwards. So putting your focus into different things, like when you're racing and you're in season, your mind's always on like performing well. And then like if you have an injury, then your focus kind of just changes, and that kind of helps you ease your mind as well because you're not thinking about performing well, you're just thinking about like rehab and doing all the things you need to heal your body. So getting strong, using the time to just do other things.
I mean, besides that, do you ever take time off?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take time off like After grands, I mean, it's kind of hard to say like taking time off, because taking time off from racing is one thing, but taking time off from the sport is another. So I would consider like the time that I have after grands as time off, but and even then I'm still trying to get stronger, because that's kind of the off season time where I'll just try to build some strength for the upcoming season. But yeah, I like to kind of during those times do other things. I like to go fishing, go hunting, and um, I like do some wakeboarding a little bit in the summertime if I get the chance to. Yeah,
Cool. Um,
I think yeah, I think it's good to have other things to keep your mind off BMX all the time.
That's funny because we talked about that sometimes, and we talk about how hard it is sometimes to ask pro riders the questions about like, what do you do besides BMX? And like a lot of riders, that's it. It's wake up, BMX, BMX throughout the day, go to sleep, wake up again, BMX. It's not too much time for other stuff, when you train that hard. But I'm glad you can
Right.
find balance and do some of that stuff. That's cool.
I don't know. I think there's like, I even think you can get too involved with it. Like when I'm at the track, I like to like get the work done, focus on the track while I'm at the track, and then when I'm done, I like to just put it away and not think about it anymore. Because for me, if I just feel like that's the way people get burnt out, is if they're thinking about their practice session at 11 o'clock at night instead of, you know what I mean? Like, like it would just be smarter to put it away and focus at like the task at hand when the task is at hand instead of when it's not. You know what I mean?
I mean, you've been riding for so long, there had to have been a time where you were burnt out.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there are definitely times like where you just get burnt out of racing because of, like the traveling, the racing. Um, and I think kind of what has helped me with that is, like I said earlier, just having those different focuses, those different outlets to where I could put the sport away and then come back to it. And then that way it's like when I'm in it, then it's got my full attention. And when I'm not, then I'm not thinking about it. So I think that's kind of one way that even paramedic school has helped me out a lot with. Like I'd be thinking about school a lot of the time and kind of what I need to do to get my paramedic license, and that would kind of take my mind off of like the training, the traveling, and the racing.
So have you raced every season since you started racing?
Pretty much, yeah, except for that COVID season. I took a good bit off, but pretty much everybody did. I started racing kind of the nationals when I was like 13, 14.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know. I really just enjoyed it. Like I love riding, and I've always just loved racing too. Hasn't even now. It's like I do it because I really just enjoy racing and I enjoy the competitiveness versus like doing it for money. Obviously, you know what I mean. It's people always will say that to me. They're like, "Oh, there's no money in sport, this and that." It's like I enjoy it. Like I don't know, you know what I mean.
right, right.
So
Well, I mean, look how many other people are doing it besides pros. I mean, the amateurs, we don't even have a chance of making money. I mean, we might make $10 for a host shot award, at a local, but that's about it. But
yeah,
so that just proves that it's the love for the sport, man. The kids love
it
it,
is.
the adults love it, parents love it. When I quit as a kid, man, my mother was like, "What am I gonna do on Friday nights now?" Like she had her group of people there, and it was just a thing for years. That was her family at a point. So Yeah, man.
That's what makes BMX what it is. I don't know. It's just everybody. Yeah. Yep. That's not really a sport where people are always trying to take. I feel like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I feel like there's just a lot of love in the sport.
If you can build your dream team of 5 riders in their prime, what 5 riders would you choose?
Like a pro team, an amateur team, both combined.
Give me a pro team, and at their prime could be anybody, any age, from whatever time frame. Who would be your top 5?
Top 5. That's a good question. Gotta put Kyle Bennett on there. I really like Mike Day. I grew up really enjoying watching him race. Probably put some homies on there. Riley House, because he deserves the recognition. Some girls. Probably put Mackenzie on there because she's been my teammate for a long time growing up, and she's killing it. Let's see, I got two more to pick.
Yep.
I'd put Kendall Wong when he was like 12, 13 on the team because he just had a crazy amount of speed and would get mad when he gets sketchy down last straight 3 bikes ahead of everybody by himself and raise his hand across the finish line because he didn't win. This is kind of funny. No, he's like one of my really good friends. And I would put, let's see, one more rider. Put Percy Owens on there for the wisdom of the team.
There you go.
What about Connor Fields? Man?
Good team right there.
Yeah, that's right. You forgot to put Connor Fields on the team.
Can't forget Connor.
I mean,
he's just a given, right? He'll be
on
the team automatically.
No, I wouldn't put Connor on the team just because he is Chase Bicycles and always like whenever anyone thinks of him, that's the face they see. Is they associate him with Chase. He wouldn't be on my team. He'd still be on Chase.
That's hilarious.
Nice. No, I mean that's all the questions I got. You got any extra ones, Shannon?
Nah, man, I think we're good for now, man. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate
it. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, brother. We'll see you next time.
All right, see you next time.
All right, out.